Black Myth Wukong Maker calls out PlayStation's Astro bot win as Game of the Year. I came all the way here for nothing. What? Game Science CEO Feng Ji publicly challenged PlayStation's Astrobot winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards, criticizing the selection criteria and expressing bewilderment at the decision. In a detailed 7-part Weibo statement, Feng Ji candidly addressed the team's disappointment, admitting he had prepared an acceptance speech 2 years in advance. No flippin' way, dude. I came all the way here for nothing, he stated, while simultaneously acknowledging the excellence of all nominated games. Oh, you're a tool bag, dude. Black Myth Wukong, the first Chinese game to receive multiple major nominations, won Best Action Game and Player's Voice Awards. Despite these achievements, Feng Ji questioned the opaque selection process that ultimately crowned Astrobot as Game of the Year. Honestly, I have no idea what the criteria for the Game of the Year were this time, Feng Ji wrote, highlighting the perceived lack of transparency in the award's selection. He noted the strong fan reaction, observing that online responses were mostly through humor and memes, which were hilarious. The CEO positioned the game's development as more than just a singular achievement. Some people say that for a team that had never made a single-player game, achieving such success on its first attempt is a rare fluke, he explained. But I want to say this wasn't some fluke. It was the inevitable result of Chinese culture, Chinese talent, China's business environment, and China's gaming industry colliding with a global player community. Look, there's nothing wrong with being proud of your culture, okay? At all. At all. But this game has felt like this is what this was the entire time. This game has felt like what, I mean, look, we can go back to when it released and talk about the propaganda that was pushing behind this in the first place, because there was, you know, all the stuff they were trying to push out to collaborators, saying you can't talk about China's gaming industry, you can't talk about Chinese government, you can't talk about feminism, you can't talk about violence. You know, it was like trying to suppress people's rights is what they were doing, and it felt weird. And then, you know, the whole time, look, again, I don't think this is a bad game. It's probably a pretty decent game for what it is, a boss rush game. But that's all it is. It's just a boss rush game. And when you put it up against a lot of these other games that were going for Game of the Year, it, in my opinion, is going to feel quite shallow in comparison. So, and now a lot of people are going to go, Astrobot's just a platformer game. You're not wrong. But then I look at games like, you know, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That's a much deeper game than any of those other ones, you know. You look at the game that won last year, you're talking about Baldur's Gate 3, much deeper, much more layered game than anything like this is, right? And so whenever I look at something that should be getting Game of the Year, I want to see something. And if this is the case, if they're saying, you know, first attempt, and this is what you should, you know, you deserve to get Game of the Year on a first attempt at a game like, yo, where's NeoWiz at? Why didn't NeoWiz win with Lies of P, huh? Somebody want to answer that? Because I'm sorry, but Liza P from NeoWiz, I would have to say, is probably a much more deep experience than something like Black Myth Wukong, because it's a Souls-like game that took you through an entire environment, a world you had to explore, as well as fight bosses that were all dynamically created and had different mechanics. And you know what I mean? It was more than this game is. But this game deserves Game of the Year, right? Even though, you know, Liza P, I don't think even came close to getting Game of the Year. Granted, it was going up against, I'm pretty sure, you know, Baldur's Gate 3, which was really tough competition. But I mean, you see the comparison here, right? So the entire year since this has come out, I haven't been able to help but think and feel like this has just been something that has been pushed and hyped up because it's China. And again, I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's probably a pretty decent game. But Game of the Year material? I don't think so. I really don't think so. With a Metacritic score of 81, Black Myth Wukong has garnered significant critical acclaim. Feng Ji remains optimistic, asserting the game represents a broader trend. I believe that in the future, more of our peers will bring higher quality, more engaging, and more confident Chinese stories to the world. Again, look, man, I mean, I'm all about it. I'm about, you know, people experiencing other cultures, and but it's not like this is the first time we've had a game come out that was pretty solid, that it you know, brought a different cultural experience to the world or anything. But it does almost feel like it's because it's China, and because China is a huge country and there's so many people in China, that this got you know, a lot of gears turning, if you will. And it just, I'm sorry, I don't really feel like this is the type of game that deserves Game of the Year. And that is a weird notion, dude, that this person, you know, look, I mean, to be fair, any artist, and that's what these game developers are, they're artists, you know, you're supposed to be invested in your product, and if you're truly invested in your product, in an artistic vision, you're supposed to look at it as something that is very good, right? And so, but to be as, I don't know, man, like the overconfidence there of, I prepared my acceptance speech 2 years in advance, bro. What? I'm sorry, man. There's something off here. This is weird. How humble, right? How humble. I'm sorry. This person comes off as somebody that I really care not to have anything to do with. And I will not play Black Myth Wukong because of the propaganda that was behind it either. I just won't do it. I don't want to play any game that has anything to do with propaganda in the industry. People talk about all the time, it's funny, there's like this hypocritical kind of sentiment in the industry where it's like, oh, well, I don't want politics in my games, right? I don't want politics in my games. And I agree. I don't want politics in my games either. But you know how many of those people will go, I don't want politics in my games, and still knew the propaganda pushing behind this game and were absolutely willing to play it and didn't care? They're like, oh, well, the politics aren't in the game. They're just, you know, behind it. Bro, you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You know, you got to pick a side, man. Politics is politics. Whether it's in the game or behind the game, it's still part of it. So, you know, figure it out, guys. But, again, look, personally, I don't think the Game Awards matter at all. Because, again, the Game Awards in and of themselves are awards that are not voted on by us, the consumer, and us, the video gaming community, right? I mean, they're voted on, but they're not elected according to our votes, right? You can go look at the fact page of the Game Awards. They have a panel of industry insiders that get 90% of the weight. We get 10% of the weight of our public vote. The panel of Geoff Keighley's industry insiders get 90% of the weight for who gets what awards, right? So it really doesn't come down to us at all. Now, you know, again, the Golden Joystick Awards, which are the awards that I think everybody should pay more attention to, Black Myth Wukong did win Game of the Year, and I called it. I said there are a lot of voters in China, and they won it, right? So, I don't know. this is a weird situation here. I don't feel good about this, and Feng Ji can. This will be somebody that is on my radar to be very, very weary of. I don't like these sentiments here. It's quite weird. And Black Myth Wukong has always been something that I didn't see as being as good as what it got hyped up to be. I don't see it being Game of the Year material. And the people need to be aware of what's going on behind these games and stuff, man. It's really weird. It's weird stuff. So arrogant, demanding your game should win game of the year. Yeah, super arrogant. To me, the suppression only became an issue because it wasn't across the board. Specifically was against you talking about anything. Well, yeah. I mean, well, that's exactly why it's political, though, right, Ferret? That's exactly why it's political. Yeah, it's different if it's something about, you know, like for instance, NetEase recently had the same kind of thing go down, but they were like, hey, you can't say anything negative about our game, okay? That's more regulated towards a, you know, trying to suppress people from talking crap about their product. Yeah? And so, while I'm still very, very outspoken about that, I think that's terrible. That's not good game development. It's not a good game developer if they don't want to hear constructive feedback. It is a much different thing than, you know, preventing people from talking about the Chinese government, the Chinese video gaming industry, stuff like that, right? That is political propaganda, political suppression. It's a whole different thing, man, you know, and it's very, very sketchy. So remember a couple of months back, China had a controversy with gaming, with a character in Genshin Impact. Vaguely, but I can't really remember exactly what it was about. Yeah. I don't know, dude. I think people need to be more concerned with what this is. Everything about this.